the November 1st, oh, thank you for recording, the November 1st general meeting of Livable Sunnyvale. We have been working extremely hard to make this a seamless presentation. And that, I'm going to leave it at that. We are trying. So welcome, everyone. Okay, so I'm looking at electeds. So Mike is here from the Planning Commission. Why is Mike looking at that? He has a strange face.
Well, I'm trying to record it informs me that the speaker isn't working, so the recording will not include audio.
So I spoke too soon. So, okay. So Mike is going to work on the audio for recording this. Because if some of you guys may know that we do have a website, livablesunnyvale.org, and on our website there are recordings of our previous meetings and different things. It sounds like recording in progress. Leah is on BPAC. Bruce, are you on a commission? Not anymore. And I think that's all. Now I'm looking on Zoom. So we have Agnes, who's on the Arts Commission. We have, I can't read that far away. Let me look at my own camera. Somebody better speak up if they're on a commission, because let's see, I'm not positive. I think that might be it. That might be all our commissions and elected. Yep, I mentioned Agnes because she's waving her hand at me. I don't think there's anyone else. So let's see. In terms of announcements, our first announcement is from Courtney, and Gail is going to introduce you.
Okay, let's see here. God, I lost it. So funny.
I don't remember what I wrote. Otherwise, I'd introduce myself.
No, it's okay. I lost what I had, so I'm just gonna have to wing it. Okay, Courtney lives in Lakewood Village, and she is responsible with a few other people of getting together almost 44 people to talk at City Council against artificial turf being placed in the remodeled Lakewood Village. It was really impressive. They were successful in getting the City Council to reject the installation of said artificial turf. And tonight she's going to talk about the dangers of artificial turf and next steps. And I think we need to, Equity and Education, Sunnyvale Equity and Education is a bubbling new group of really good advocates.
Do I get to start? Okay. All right. Thank you for having us. I'm Courtney. I'm here with two of my new best friends, Mary and Andrea. We have two other people, Carrie Levin and Susan Hinton, who could not be here tonight, but are here in spirit. And we do not have a group name yet because, as Gail said, we're still very new. We're still working on that. Also, I have to duck out at 7:15, so apologies for that. And before I get started, one quick note, I saw the little teaser that went out about events or topics tonight, and it gave me a lot more credit than I am due. So I was actually the last person of these 5 to join, so I would not have done any of this without the help of the other 4 amazing women. So thank you for the credit, but I have to share it. Okay, tonight we're going to talk about 4 things. What artificial turf is, why it is dangerous, what we are doing about it, and where we need help. So topic number 1, what is it? It is basically a plastic substitute for grass. There are 4 layers. The bottom is a shock pad layer. The second layer is basically a backing, which is what all of the plastic grass blades are sewn onto. There's an infill that used to be made of recycled car tires that is now made of more typically like cork or sand, and that helps hold the blades together. It does sometimes not have PFAS chemicals in it, but it has a lot of other nasty things that I'm not going to dive into today. And then the last layer is the carpet layer, which is basically just a fancy word for the plastic grass blades that are coated in PFAS chemicals. So there's your artificial turf in under a minute. Please Google if you want to learn more. I'm going to move to the next topic of what's wrong with artificial turf. There's a lot, more than I can cover tonight, and so I was going to look at it from the lens of Livable Sunnyvale. So I know you guys have your 3 pillars. One of those is sustainability. You're looking at adding in one for equity, and you are hoping for a people-friendly Sunnyvale. So I'm going to look at it from those 3 perspectives tonight. First problem, artificial turf is not sustainable. It's made of plastic. It is not recyclable. It's water intensive. So we used to think that artificial turf was really good and very drought friendly. We've realized we were wrong. Recent California legislature actually officially declares artificial turf is not drought friendly landscaping. Santa Clara Valley Water agrees. And a fun fact is it takes over 900 gallons of water to make 1 square meter of artificial turf. Also not sustainable because those chemicals that it's made of will either leach into the water or fall off as little pieces of debris. They go out, they contaminate our environment, and they contaminate our water supply. So not sustainable. Second problem, it's not really equitable. So you guys know, or maybe you don't know, but right now we only have artificial turf fields in North Sunnyvale. We have the one at Fair Oaks Park, and we have several up at the Twin Creeks complex over by Baylands. Lakewood Park was another addition, potentially, so that would have been all of our artificial turf fields in North Sunnyvale. North Sunnyvale, as you know, is a lower resource, lower income part of Sunnyvale, and we know that there are a lot of dangers with artificial turf. And historically, communities are really bad about putting things that are bad for people in the environment in lower income areas. And here, Sunnyvale was headed to do exactly that and put all of these artificial turf fields with their environmental and health and safety problems all in the lower income part of Sunnyvale. So it's not equitable. Finally, it's not people friendly. So I mentioned these PFAS and other chemicals. Those have been linked to things like increased risks of cancer, decreased immune system efficiency, and other health problems. Additionally, because it's just plastic, you have to deal with the urban heat island effect. And so that means that the temperature of artificial turf is very hot, say 80 degrees more than natural grass by comparison. That gives you increased risk of things like heat stroke, and you can also have increased risk of injuries. So for all of, well, most of the pillars you guys are interested in, artificial turf is not sustainable, it's not equitable, and it's not people friendly. I could go on. I'm going to change topics and talk about what we've been doing. Again, you can Google all this stuff, and right on the second slide here, there's a bunch more links if you're interested. So our work is split into 2 parts. We've been working on stuff related to the city of Sunnyvale and stuff related to the Fremont Union High School District. As you may know, the city of Sunnyvale is going to work on renovating Lakewood Park. That is the park that's basically on the other side of 101 from us. The initial plan that they put together this summer included replacing 2 acres of natural grass with artificial turf. We found out about that and we heavily advocated. Gail stole some of my thunder, but we had a huge turnout. We had 44 people call into the city council meeting last week opposing the installation of artificial turf. 22 of those people were from Lakewood. We had a huge letter writing campaign, which include letters from Supervisor Otto Lee, former Sunnyvale Mayor Dean Chu, Santa Clara County Medical Association, and more. And as Gail already told you, City Council voted to reject the installation of artificial turf at Lakewood Park, which was a huge win. I will say we were kind of lucky. So you guys know City Council, several of those members have strong backgrounds in environmental and sustainability issues. They understand the dangers of artificial turf. We already had grass, so the inertia kind of pushed us to having grass. And we didn't have a lot of lobbying from people in the artificial turf industry. So we won, but you know, the wins were favorable, if you will. Where you guys can help with Sunnyvale. So first one, if you're interested, thank council for keeping artificial turf out of Lakewood Park. That was amazing. Second one, in the meeting, council member Mellinger brought up the suggestion of a ban on artificial turf citywide. I think that's a great idea. Let council know if you agree that that's a great idea. And the third thing is we need to make sure that they don't skimp out on this natural grass in Lakewood. They need to do their research. They need to find people who know what they're doing so that we choose a grass that's great and that can really make Lakewood Park a model for all other natural grass fields that we have in Sunnyvale. All right, I'm going to switch topics. High school district. So the high school district has 15 artificial turf fields today. 12 of them are in dire need of replacement. It's a little bit different. So the people on the high school district board do not have the same background in environmental and sustainability issues that we have on council. So there's a lot more education that we need to do about the dangers of artificial turf and the natural grass alternatives that we can use that are better. They already have artificial turf, so the inertia here is to basically keep artificial turf. And the third challenge is that they are being very heavily lobbied by industry representatives to keep artificial turf. There was a study session back in September that was very, very heavily biased towards artificial turf. It's just one example of where we're going. So, in terms of timing at the high school district, artificial turf is not on the agenda for the rest of this year. They're going to pick it up probably in February, March of next year. So there's no immediate action on their side. We, our group of 5 or 6 people, are working on planning, but there are still things that you can do. So the first thing that is super important is help us communicate to the board that we need to have another study session that talks about why artificial turf is bad and why there are better grass alternatives. You know, we had the one in September that was very heavily biased in one direction. We need to help correct the misinformation that was shared in that study session. Second thing you guys can do, educate your neighbors, students, teachers, friends about, like I said, dangers of artificial turf and other options. And then when the time is right, we're hoping to duplicate what we did with the city council. So we need help with petitions. We'll need help with people who want to write letters to the board. And of course, we'll need people speaking at board meetings about advocating for natural grass. So some similarities between Sunnyvale, the city, and the high school, but also some very big differences to work through. I have actually a couple more minutes than I thought I was going to have, so I'm going to jump up just really quickly to kind of beyond the city and beyond the high school, and where can we go? Santa Clara County is looking at putting artificial turf fields in the fairgrounds. That's another thing we want to advocate against. You can go talk to the city and board members about putting in a responsible use policy of artificial turf fields. So we don't have one right now, which means that those fields can be played on when they are too hot. We need to make sure if we're going to have these artificial turf fields, we're protecting our students, we're protecting our residents. You can go to state level. You can thank our state representatives for the recent California legislature that passed that I mentioned before. Cities can now ban artificial turf, and we now know that artificial turf is not drought tolerant. You can go to this California Department of Education and say, why are we putting all this artificial turf fields down? Let's figure out a better solution that's going to keep our students safe. You know, we want to invest in the youth. That's more than just can they play sports for 4 years. That's what is the environment going to be like as they get older? What health effects are we going to put them through just because we picked plastic over grass? Thinking even bigger, Rokana, he was going to have a town council or town hall meeting on Saturday. I know that got moved. There is no federal regulation of artificial turf fields at this point. So let's push them, hey, we need some regulation of this stuff. Ideally a ban, but for now let's focus on maybe regulation. And if all those are too big for you, we can come back smaller. Our group needs some help with research. There's a lot to dive into here. We don't have the bandwidth. Things like past bond measures, we can look into green ribbon awards, how education department defines sustainability and how artificial turf does or doesn't fit into that, and to advocate to really keep it out. So I will stop there. My time's almost up. But thank you very much for having us. Thank you for listening. We're excited, hopefully, to work together towards a more sustainable, equitable, and people-friendly Sunnyvale. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Courtney. That was a lot of information, and I really appreciate how much you gave us and being respectful of the time and tons of information. So I look forward to continuing this conversation. So thank you. Thank you all for coming. Agnes, I'm going to turn the microphone over to you, please.
Okay, thanks, Angela. So first of all, I would like to thank 2 members of our city staff for coming this evening, Madeline and Christina. Madeline Carr is the Environmental Programs Manager for the City of Sunnyvale. She oversees sustainability, stormwater, and watershed protection programs. She has been with the city for 3 years, now starting off as the sustainability coordinator and stepping into the manager role in 2022. She has nearly 10 years of experience in the environmental field, having worked for consulting firms and school districts prior to joining the city, and holds a Master's of Science in Environmental Management. I would also like to thank Christina and introduce Christina Robbie. She is the sustainability coordinator for the city of Sunnyvale. She oversees the city's climate action playbook, which we are going to learn about tonight, implementation, and leading the 7-member sustainability commission. She has been with the city for 4 years, starting off as an environmental program specialist in the Solid Waste Division, then moved to the Regulatory Programs Divisions before stepping into the Sustainability Coordinator role this year. She has nearly 10 years of experience in the environmental field, having worked for local government and nonprofits prior to joining the City of Sunnyvale. Christina holds a bachelor's degree in sociology and a master's degree in sustainability leadership. So I am going to turn it over to both of you. And do you want questions during your presentation, or would you prefer that we wait till the end?
We can, either way, what is typically the format for these?
It depends on the speaker. It's strictly up to the speaker. Some speakers want a cadence of just talking and then questions. It's really up to you two.
Okay, we'll give the presentation and take questions at the end. I think that way we don't get too derailed. Sometimes questions can get into the weeds and
Okay,
derail the
great.
presentation. So we'll do it that way.
And thank you for coming again.
Of course. Thank you for having us. We're happy to be here. Okay, let's see. Can everyone see the slides online as well?
Yes, I can see him.
Wonderful. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. We already have been introduced, and we're here to talk about the Climate Action Playbook amendments and our draft game plan 2028. So I'm going to give just a little bit of background. What is our Climate Action Playbook? What are the goals and targets that we have set within that, and how is it structured? We'll talk about our progress to date in terms of implementation and reaching our goals, and then give a high-level overview of the draft game plan 2028. All right, so a climate action playbook is a climate action plan. I'm sure most of you are familiar with that. It's basically a plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So in California, we measure progress and our goals as a % reduction from 1990 level emissions. So you'll see that throughout this presentation. Anytime you take a look at a climate action plan, that reference of those 1990 levels and how much lower we are below those levels. So for the City of Sunnyvale, our end goal is carbon neutrality, which is very common for a climate action plan. Basically, you want to produce as much carbon or greenhouse gas emissions as you are sequestering or removing from the atmosphere. The way that the state is defining carbon neutrality right now is 85% below 1990 levels by 2045. So it's an 85% reduction from 1990 level emissions. This is a new target, so we'll talk a little bit about Sunnyvale's current target, and then this is one of the amendments that we're proposing with this playbook update, is to align with the state's target and go for this more aggressive carbon reduction goal in a shorter time frame. So our playbook is structured. We have 6 overarching strategies that are pretty much our big approaches for reaching our end game of carbon neutrality. Within the 6 strategies, we've got 18 plays, and that's where we've got specific areas for actions called out, and oftentimes we have a quantified metric or target that we're trying to reach and achieve with that specific play that supports achieving the overall strategy. So those strategies and plays really make up the plan itself. They're meant to be, pretty much withstand a lot of the updates and things like that, and really get us to our goal, which is, it was 2050 and now will be 2045. So that's our pathway to 2045. The other component to this climate action plan is the game plan. And so that's really a work plan or action plan. So it lays out very specific actions for us to take over a shorter time period. We adopted the climate action playbook in 2019. And with that, we had game plan 2022. COVID-19 hit, we had to extend that by year, so we often refer to it as game plan 2023 now. What we're here to talk about tonight is our next plan, which is game plan 2028, and some of the amendments that we're proposing. So as we took a look at what that next 5-year work plan would be, we also assessed this new carbon neutrality target, and then looked at our 2030 target and if there was any adjustments we needed to make in order to make sure that we're on track. So the 6 playbook strategies are here up on the slide. So promoting electricity, clean electricity is promoting carbon-free electricity. This is cleaning our grid using renewables. Number 2 is decarbonizing buildings. So that's really removing natural gas use from buildings, main goal of that strategy. Strategy 3 is decarbonizing transportation, which means zero emission vehicles, as well as reducing VMT, transitioning to alternative transportation and transit. And then sustainable land use is how we can build Sunnyvale to ensure that people can easily access transit, walking, biking, etc. Strategy 4 is managing resources, and this is where we have our zero waste goals, water resiliency goals, carbon sequestration goals. Strategy 5 is empowering our community, and this is really a strategy that ensures that we're educating and communicating these goals and targets with the community. We can't achieve any of our targets unless the community is involved in this plan and involved in the actions within it, and really feels empowered to be able to create that sustainable future that they're looking for. And the last is adapting to a changing climate. So this is just ensuring that as we continue to experience things like heat waves, flooding from extreme rain events, things like that, that Sunnyvale is adapting to what those new normals or new weather events might look like. And so if you're not familiar with the playbook, that's a lot of terminology I've thrown at you. So I tried to put it here so it's easier to understand. So what an overarching strategy might be, like strategy 1, within it will have a play such as promoting clean electricity, 100% clean electricity. That play has a target or metric associated with it, which is to achieve 100% participation in clean electricity. And so we measure how many, what percentage of our community is getting electricity from carbon-free sources. And then a move that might support achieving that metric within a game plan is something like continuing to support and steer Silicon Valley clean energy and providing clean power and offering decarbonization programs to our community. So that gives you kind of an overview of just how it's structured. And so when I'm using terms like strategy, play, metric, and move, hopefully that helps. And here's the heavy data slide. I know it's a lot. So this is showing progress as well as targets. So I'm going to walk through the horizontal lines because those are the targets. So that first one at the top, the dark gray, is 1990 levels. And so that's was our 2020 goal set within our first climate action plan. We actually achieved that in 2014. That's also our baseline, right? 1990 levels is what we're measuring all of our progress from. So everything is a % below 1990 levels. The next horizontal line is around 600,000 metric tons of CO2, and that's the state's 2030 target. So the state's looking to achieve a 40% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. That's where we would have to be to hit that goal. The light blue line below that is Sunnyvale's 2030 target. That's 56% below 1990 levels by 2030. So Sunnyvale has a more aggressive interim target than the state. We adopted that target when we adopted the playbook because if you can see down below where the 85 and 80% lines are, there's a long way to go after 2030. And if we have any chance of achieving that, we probably should be a lot more aggressive in the interim to set us up for a higher chance of success. So that was kind of the thought behind that target. So Game Plan 2028 is going to get us to 2 years shy of that target. So this game plan is really geared to get us to the 2030 target, that 56% reduction. So there's some pretty aggressive targets in there. The dotted dashed line was the previous state target, the 2051. So that's the 80% below 1990 levels by 2050. And now we're looking at the 85% by 2045. So that gives you an overview of our targets and kind of where they fall on the chart. And the bar graphs, you can see our progress. So where we've been and in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. I've highlighted the last 3 years in the different shades of purple, really because the last two years of data are 2020 and 2021. Those are both data years impacted by COVID-19, a lot less cars on the road, a lot less economic activity. So just the data has a lot of caveats with it. 2019 was a normal year. We can see in 2021, we started to bounce back towards that level, and we anticipate continuing to bounce back again in 2022. We're just about done processing that data right now. And it's looking at like it's gonna be close to the 2019 levels. So you can see that we're at 26% below 1990 levels in 2019. So we've got quite a ways to go in the next 5 to 7 years before we reach that 2030 target. All right. And so where do our emissions come from? So this pie chart here is just giving you the most up-to-date kind of overall share of emissions. So transportation takes up 43%, or it contributes to 43% of our community-wide greenhouse gas emissions. Natural gas use, both in the residential and commercial sector, is another about 27%. So just those two sectors is 75% of the pie. So that's really going to be where our focus is, and you'll see that represented in this next work plan that we have. As another sector that's becoming increasingly a bigger portion of the pie is that off-road equipment sector. Off-road equipment means anything from a leaf blower up to like your heavy-duty earth-moving construction equipment. Solid waste is anything that comes, any emissions emitted through the landfill and recycling process. Commercial electricity emissions and residential electricity emissions are a lot lower now thanks to SVCE, so we've only got that about less than 4%, 5%, and then water and wastewater. So we calculate emissions from there, but they're always very, very low. Okay, so hopefully now you feel like you have a little bit of grounding in terms of what our plan is, where our emissions are coming from, and where we need to get to. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the progress that we made with the first game plan. That way, when we talk about the next game plan, you have a little grounding in what we've done so far. So with Game Plan 2023, we've maintained a 97% enrollment in SVCE, so maintaining really carbon-free, clean electricity for the majority of our customer community. We've also adopted REACH codes. REACH codes did a number of things for Sunnyvale. Number one was requiring more solar on new construction, across all new construction. Number two was requiring new construction to be all electric, so no more natural gas in newly constructed buildings. And then the third piece of this was increasing our electric vehicle requirements for new construction. So when people are building new buildings, we have more stringent requirements in terms of making them EV ready or EV capable. For decarbonizing buildings, we've also built and been able to open the LEED Platinum Zero Net Energy City Hall. So we are focusing strongly on reducing natural gas use in all city facilities as well. And then the Cool Cooktops program is an induction cooktop loaner program so that the community can rent out an induction cooktop from the library to try it out themselves. And they're testing it basically in the hopes that we can get them on the hook for electrifying their appliances. This is a program that we launched in this game plan that will evolve into something much larger with the next. For transportation on sustainable land use, we had a lot of specific plans and area plans that were updated or adopted in the last 5 years. And all of those across the board that we reviewed with the Sustainability Commission have really focused on diverse mixed use development, diverse housing options, near transit. And I'm not sure if you all probably heard from the Moffett Park Specific Plan group maybe, or have reviewed that plan a little bit. Maybe it came to this group. That plan in particular really focuses on creating a walkable green space throughout Moffett Park, connecting the new residents there to light rail, increasing the viability of light rail being extended and offered throughout that area. So that's the sustainable land use goals. We had a lot of great achievements there. Those won't be realized though until those plans are fully built out, right? So that could be over the next 10, 15, 20 years. For decarbonizing transportation, like I talked about REACH codes, we've also been increasing our EV infrastructure. So we've installed 12 fast chargers throughout Sunnyvale. So these are ones where you can plug in and get charged fairly quickly within 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever, depending on your car and how much you need. And looking to expand those. We've also been running the Drive Electric program for 3 years now, which offers test drives to the community for electric vehicles twice a year and a handful of webinars and connecting residents to different incentives that they can get to help purchase EVs. You're probably all familiar, if you live in Sunnyvale, with the expansion of the food cycle program. So that was originally just in single family residents and now is in all multifamily residents. And will be in all businesses soon. We also expanded our water conservation outreach, and the city did a really excellent job of meeting the drought requirements for reducing water use per capita. We've continued to implement the urban forest management plan. And then in terms of empowering the community, we've had a lot of resources developed to help the community, right? So Silicon Valley Clean Energy launched their eHub, which has a number of different tools and assistance basically that you can get online to look at all EVs. Like you do an EV search, you can find rebates for EVs, same thing for heat pumps, cooktops, different things like that. It'll connect you to different rebates. They've got different programs that can help connect you to contractors and things like that. we launched our Sunnyvale Climate Action Scoreboard, which is where you can find all of our greenhouse gas emission data, any other metrics that we report out on. You can see the data through the years. There's some qualitative updates. There's also a lot of educational information on there for people who are interested in learning more about the different strategies in place. We continue to offer the Sustainability Speaker Series, which brings experts in kind of new or hot topics within the environmental field to the community to talk about them. And then we launched an Instagram account. So it's just part of our trying to increase our engagement with the community and making sure that we're reaching different community members where they're at and how they're receiving information. Okay, so that's what we've kind of been able to accomplish, high level points over the last 3 or 4 years. So this next, oh, there it goes. The next work plan that we're looking at is a 5-year work plan. And this is going to be 65 different moves. So that last one was about 46 moves total for the 3 years. This one will have 65 being implemented over 5 years. We have 33 returning from the previous game plan. A lot of those are returning. It wasn't that no progress was made, that we achieved big milestones, or that they're moves that we just need to continue making progress on. They're probably actions that aren't ever really going to fall off of our radar that we have to keep working at. And so when we were rewriting this next plan, we realized like a lot of these we just have to keep working on. There are a handful of those that maybe progress got started on a little bit later, and so we're still working on them, and they'll be continuing through the initial years of this first the next game plan. And then we have 32 new moves. And so this pie chart shows you the breakdown of those 65 moves, where they're located, and you can see decarbonizing buildings, decarbonizing transportation, both have a lot, and then managing resources sustainably has a lot. Managing resources sustainably has waste, water, and carbon sequestration in it, so that's why that one's a little bulkier as well. Okay, so I'm going to go over some high level, like where's a lot of the effort going to be out of this game plan. So the big one off the bat is existing building electrification. We're covering new construction with the REACH codes that we adopted, so now we need to work on natural gas use in existing buildings. With that, we are adopting a new target for 2030 in terms of reducing natural gas use. So that 44% reduction, that's a new target proposed. That's part of the playbook amendment. And basically, when we were looking at how far we've come in this path, we need to get a lot further. And so we have to adopt a more aggressive target to get there. And this is the easiest way for us to measure it. So we can easily measure natural gas use in residential and commercial sectors. In order to do this, we're going to have to do some studies, develop strategies, adopt ordinances, and then develop incentive and support programs to help our residents get on board and our community members get on board with these ordinances and be able to electrify their homes and their businesses without breaking the bank. Another really big focus is going to be zero emission vehicles. So this is another target that we had to increase and get more aggressive on. VMT reduction just isn't going to cut it, and zero emission adoption in Sunnyvale is on the rise. The state policy and funding is very supportive of zero emission vehicle adoption. There's a lot of money coming from the state in terms of supporting zero emission vehicle adoption as well as charger installation. So in order to achieve that 42% of Sunnyvale registered vehicles being zero emission, we're going to need to install a lot more charging infrastructure to support people charging those new vehicles. So we have some moves focused on that. Again, incentive and support programs. And then we're also adding a new focus within this strategy for the small off-road equipment. And so small off-road equipment is going to be, your smaller generators, leaf blowers, mowers, things of that nature. And we're looking to electrify those. And again, that is in line with state policy. And I'm sure you've all heard about banning sale of gas-powered lawn equipment. Okay, for achieving zero waste, we are looking into a reusables pilot program, and then depending on how that goes, expanding that. Working on edible food recovery and reducing organic waste disposal in the landfill by 75% by 2025. So those are the big targets there. For resilient water supply, we've got moves focused on water conservation as a way of life, and this is really enforced or reinforced by state policy. So the state will be coming up with some new targets that will be set soon, a lot of reporting requirements, but basically just really pushing water conservation. We're looking at a few moves that look into dual plumbing, how we can better prepare for recycled water, and reducing irrigation of ornamental turf. So lawn that is there for aesthetic purposes rather than recreational purposes. Okay, and with that, I'm going to hand it over to Christina.
Okay, so I'm just going to go over the timeline of Game Plan 2028. So as of Monday, we are in our community engagement stage. And so we're really looking for feedback and input from our community on all of the strategies, plays, and moves. And we plan to have a joint study session with the Planning Commission, BPAC Commission, and Sustainability Commission on November 30th, which is a Thursday at 6:30 p.m. And then we will be also hosting 4 community workshops. And there is an online survey as well. In case anyone is not available for the workshops, there's the online survey where you can provide feedback there. And then once we are done with our community engagement phase on December 16th, after the holiday season, we will be going into our final adoption. So from February to May 2024, we're going to have a final review from our directors and the city manager, and then the commissions and city council will receive the game plan, and they'll vote for whether they approve it or not. And then we will also be folding in the resources needed for Game Plan 2028 within our budget and during the budget process next year. And then we will be leaving this slide up after I'm done here, but this is the schedule for our workshops. So we have one already coming up this Saturday, November 4th. We really are trying to target different areas of our community. So the one on Saturday is going to be targeted towards our youth, but of course anyone is welcome to come to any of them. But we're really trying to hear from the youth since they are the future. And it's going to be at City Hall in our Alder room on the first floor. Then on November 9th, we are going to be hosting a business workshop. So we're really trying to target businesses and help them try to electrify and just hear from them and their perspective. And then on Saturday, December 2nd, we are going to have a general public community workshop. So anyone from the community can come to that one. It's going to be at our senior center or recreation center. And then the final workshop is all online, and it is for general public as well. And that's going to be on Thursday, December 7th. And all the information that I just said and more can be found at sunnyvaleclimateaction.org. And that is all. Thank you.
And then we could take questions. Okay, so Julia.
Yeah, hi. So back to the first presenter, I have 2 questions. And it's all about percentage. You said that off-road that includes leaf blowers and vehicles. What percentage is what's the split? How much is leaf blowers and how much is off-road vehicles?
So the small off-road versus large off-road, you mean? So the smaller off-road.
Yeah, so the 10% pie, right? 10% yellow pie piece. You said that was includes leaf blowers. I was just wondering what percent of that 10% is leaf blowers.
I don't have the exact percentage off the top of my head, but I believe of that 10% piece there, only about 10% of that or less is leaf blowers. The majority of that is medium to heavy duty off-road equipment. So larger pieces of equipment, primarily used for construction or maybe transportation, things like forklifts and things of that nature, but excavators, any kind of, dirt mover, bulldozer type thing.
And what options do, say, construction people have? Or have them convert to electric?
There are not electric alternatives available right now. There are things like different types of fuel sources being considered for that. So that's why in this game plan we're focusing on the small off-road. So just getting, tackling the smaller equipment, the lawn leaf blowers, lawn equipment, things like that for now. Waiting for the technology to kind of catch up for the rest of that.
Okay. Then the second question I have is about cooktops. The residential gas is 14% of that piece of pie. What percentage is used for cooking? And so my thinking is that it's very hard to change people's habits, especially like the core cooking habits, right? I mean, I switched over to induction already, but a lot of, it's difficult to convince people to do that. And I'm thinking that, like, for example, water heaters, that's 24/7, it's on, right? And so my guess would be that water heater and also heating, right? The AC or heating. Yeah, anyway, so the question for you is what percentage is cooktop?
Yeah, we don't have that data for Sunnyvale broken down specifically, but you're right. Cooking isn't nearly as high. I think HVAC is the highest. So when we're looking at programs that target electrification of homes, anytime somebody's looking to maybe install AC, for instance, if they don't have AC in their homes, that's something that we come across a lot. And so there could be an option for doing a full heat pump system throughout the home in that case. However, we are working closely with our, SVCE and other programs because the contractor community also needs to be on board with that. For instance, if you go out and try to electrify your home, you could get a number of different quotes. You can have contractors that maybe don't agree with electrification. So while we can try and push that people get HVACs, the market has to be there to support them as well. So there are some moves and things that we're working on to help do that. Because you're right, it's like HVAC and heat pumps, right? When those go out, you're out of hot water. You're probably not going to wait around to find the right contractor who's going to install the all electric one. And if there's any supply chain issues with getting one, that can be tricky. So is there an option for us to do some sort of a loaner program where someone can get a loaner hot water heater while they're waiting for the all electric one? So those are some things that we're looking at.
Yeah, I think it would be the bang for the buck, because it's so difficult to change people's habits. But water heater and also the heating and HAC, once you have it in, the user doesn't really worry about what the type of equipment it is, right? So it's just a one-time pain. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, and I don't know how should I just call if there's somebody else here and then I'll go to Leah. Okay. Oh, sure. Good. Okay. Okay, Bill.
Yeah, I wonder to what extent the climate action playbook and game plan has incorporated the rebates offered under the Inflation Reduction Act. That those provide some additional incentive to electrify.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of connecting the community to those programs or the city applying for grant programs itself, we're watching both the Inflation Reduction Act as well as the bipartisan infrastructure bill closely for opportunities as they come up. It's something that entities like Silicon Valley Clean Energy and BayREN, that's our, I'm not going to remember what the acronym is right now off the top of my head, Energy Network. They're also looking at that. So it is a consideration. It's definitely, as we're preparing for the budget adoption in May and we're folding in our resource asks, something like incentive programs is not something we're going to have fully funded, and we will need to rely on grant funding and programs or different creative ways to get that funding in. So the resources will really be more, in terms of staff time, what's it going to take, and then any consulting supporting funds. So yeah, great point. We are looking into it. It's not called out specifically in the document though. Okay, Leah.
Thank you.
Yes.
So, a couple questions. There's a very large mobile home park community in Sunnyvale, several thousand residents. And although park electrification and upgrades are voluntary by the parks right now, my park is undergoing that. I would love to go more electrical, and once they're finally done, I will look into, on-demand water heaters and stuff like that, and get rid of my forced hot air heater, and I'll have an induction cooktop and all that lovely stuff. But right now, none of the services you offered have been targeted towards that population. So what is the city going to do to try and persuade, first of all, the park owners to upgrade the electrical infrastructure so that we can get things like, all electric vehicle chargers and stuff like that installed within the park, because we have none now. And, local residents are plugging in their plug-in hybrids through, if they don't have an outside outlet, they have extension cords going through windows and stuff like that.
Right.
So, you know,
Yeah, so we have a building electrification strategies that we want to develop as part of this. And so I think that's some of the research we have to do. We had some conversations with SVCE about mobile home parks specifically and electrification of those parks and what we could do to support them, what SVCE could do. And didn't really find anything that we could implement easily right away. So it's a lingering question that we're hoping to address with the strategy, and when we can get a consultant on board to really help us dig into that.
okay. I'm saying don't leave it too long just because it's not low-hanging fruit. Don't leave us to the last minute, okay? There are a lot of us out there that would love to have, like, solar panels able to be installed on manufactured homes. There are panel sets that are suited for that, but when I call the local solar installers, they won't touch manufactured homes because, But the other thing I wanted to ask is, what about electrification of the city fleet?
We are working on that.
Okay, and
We-
when is that goal expected to be achieved, and what are we looking at?
I don't have any projections like that for you. The state, California Air Resource Board, has adopted the Advanced Clean Fleets Rule, which does have pretty stringent electrification requirements starting as soon as 2024.
Mhm.
So we're in the process of assessing those right now, seeing what that looks like for our fleet. There's obviously different tiers to that. Right now, we've got, I want to say something like 12 or 13 electric vehicles for the passenger ones. What we're trying to look at now and what that part of that new CARB rule is really looking at, okay, what about the medium duty, heavy duty? What does that mean for charging infrastructure for the city? How do we plan to make sure that we have enough charging stations to power these medium and heavy duty pieces of equipment as well? So looking into that now.
Okay.
All the technology is not quite there.
And I understand there might be
Oh, sorry. Yes.
yeah, I understand there might be exemptions still in place for natural gas use for commercial purposes, like for restaurants and stuff like that. And now, I don't know if the state's going to pass any sort of laws on that, but, is the city going to consider an ordinance banning natural gas in restaurants and stuff like that going from a certain time forward? Because induction cooktops work just as well as gas, even though chefs might not think so, but that kind of thing, because those are really high emitters of methane as well as, being heat generators and so forth.
Yes, yes. So when we adopted REACH codes, it was intended to be a phased kind of ordinance approach, and so phase one was what we adopted, and so we do have it within this next game plan to look at future versions of that and what that might be, which would be looking at those exemptions and are we ready to remove those.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about sales of things like propane-powered grills and stuff like that within, city limits and so forth? Because again, those are methane emitters.
Yeah, banning the sale of items within cities is a lot harder to do from what I've understood. So I think that we have the Bay Area Air Quality Management District is proposing to ban the sale of HVAC and water heaters, natural gas, fossil fuel powered HVAC and water heaters by 2027 within the
Mhm.
Bay Area.
Mhm.
And we're a big enough when you have a big enough market like that, that's easier to do. But for just to do it within Sunnyvale could be really hard. So I think that that's a policy that we're looking at. They will be doing a feasibility study on that by around 2025,
Okay.
and that will help and fold into our electrification strategy.
And what about permitting things for like outdoor things, like outdoor hot tubs and stuff like that, which might be propane fired as opposed to electrified? Because I figured there would be like city permits for installations like that,
Yes, yeah, we have a
or heated swimming pools or things like that, yeah.
right. And so I think what you're getting at is kind of like, at what point do we intersect people? Is it when they're purchasing things, when they're permitting, maybe upgrades on their home? And those are all pieces that we're considering.
Okay,
So sometimes you can catch people at time of sale. That's a harder mechanism for a city to implement. That's usually better regionally or state. Permitting is great. Not everybody gets permits for all the things that they do. So how many people are we missing if we only implement something at the permit point?
Okay.
So we're looking into all that. Yeah.
okay.
Thank
I'm
you.
gonna
I
be
appreciate
bugging
it.
you each and every, time we comes up about the
Please,
mobile home parks.
please
'cause-
do. Please do. Yeah.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Sure. Agnes?
Yeah, thanks. You had mentioned electric water heaters. A number of years back, we had to replace our water heater. We could not find an electric water heater. So are you expecting that the industry is going to be moving forward to help us meet these goals as well by creating more electric water heaters as an example?
Yes. Yes, we are. So I think with, again, the Bay Area Air Quality, so BACMed Management District, that's their ruling was for 2027 to ban the sale of gas powered things like water heaters. And so that is policies at regional level, large regional levels and state levels like that are meant to help trigger the manufacturer. California has a lot of purchase power. We have a lot of economic power for things like this. And so that's kind of what happened with clean vehicles, right? We've progressively, this as a state, led the manufacturing of vehicles to be more fuel efficient. We've pushed the manufacturing of vehicles to be more zero emission vehicles. And so I think that that's where we're heading with the building electrification as well. We're also working on the workforce development piece of that. So apart from also requiring the manufacturers to create them, requiring the contractors to be educated in installing them and supportive of installing them.
Well, let's hope I haven't jinxed my functional water heater by bringing this up. So
it can be tough. It can be tough.
it could be tough. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, Gail. Oh, you're on mute.
I have a couple of questions. First of all, I think it would be really cool if the city could install a kitchen that had an induction stove, and on Saturdays or something, you could maybe near the library, and people could come over. I don't think you're going to get a lot of people to convert just by talking about it. I think people, if you have a place where people can come and watch it and stuff like that, I think people will, when they need a new stove, they'll go induction. But I think you really need to have something, and maybe you can work with Home Depot and Lowe's to do that. But I think it's really important that people actually be able to see stuff being cooked on these and, have their hands on it. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is mobile homes are regulated by an MRL, which is the mobile home law, and how much cities can do on mobile home regulations is pretty nominal. And in terms of water heaters, the mobile homes are exempt from the new rules on water heaters. So water heaters, the conventional ones will still need to be available somewhere for mobile homes. Okay, that's number one. So I don't know how the heck we're going to do that. And number two, the electrification, that's handled again by the HCD for all mobile homes in the state of California. So I think it's great that Leah wants the city to get involved, but that's really a state issue. So that's all I got for you. But I really think it would be really cool to have someplace where there's a demo of the heat induction. That would be terrific. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Gail. The new Lakewood Library will actually have an induction kitchen in the community center, and we are hoping to be able to run demonstrations out of there. So that's something on the books. But another consideration SVCE had was like a mobile electric home kind of trailer that you could tow to events. And yeah. So I like it. I like where your head's at. That's good. Andrea.
And you can have aprons,
sorry.
giveaway aprons that say, I love heat induction.
I'm Margaret Lawson, and I have a heat pump water heater, but boy, the hassle of, that was easy. And that got rebates, and that also upgraded the panel. The HVAC system was I had 7 contractors, and I finally figured out the 5th contractor what we were talking about, because I was talking about mini split, because that's what I had heard about. And then finally, the 5th contractor, these are people coming out, said to me, wait a minute, you've already got a duct system in your house. You don't want a mini split, duh. But there are 1,700 Eichler homes in Sunnyvale, which can only use mini split, is what I understand. So when the heat pump water heater came out, there were meetings in Sunnyvale, and that thing was installed. The pandemic started 2020, right? So it was installed a couple of years earlier, and we were proactive in that we figured, first of all, I really wanted one, and secondly, oops, sorry, and so we were very proactive about it. Hoping that the water heater would break any day. But, if a water heater breaks today, you can call somebody, Sears or Penny or Lowe's or somebody, and they install it that day. It doesn't work that way with a heat pump because you need permits and you need to find plumber and electrician. I mean, it's a much more complicated process, and people really have to know that, I think. And then fortunately, because of the upgrade that Silicon Valley Clean Energy provided for the heat pump water heater, then I have to actually have 2 furnaces in my house. It sounds like it's a huge house, but it's just because we added on and it didn't work. So I have 2 furnaces. So half the house is comfortable and half the house is freezing. But I think on the heat pump water heater, there was a lot of education that was happening around that. And I think I was the first person to sign up when they finally had it. There's not the education about the HVAC system. And this whole mini split versus using the ducts that you've already got in your house, that's, as I said, it took me 7 contractors to come out and talk to me and try to talk me into things and trying to figure it all out. And I finally did, and I got a very good contractors. That was the other thing I found is some places, I'm sure it's different now because those 2 systems have been in now a couple of years, but some contractors are not familiar with it, so they kind of trying to talk you out of, no, why don't you go with gas? Because they're not familiar. I'm sure it's changed by this time. I don't know. I had really good, he became my buddy, this guy, because he was so helpful. Roberto, if anybody wants to know, with air care. Oh, and James Tulea, whom I think some of you, he did a demo a few years ago on the induction cooktop over at Toyota. I don't know if you guys remember that, but yeah, he actually cooked, and then I got an induction cooktop, and then the thing broke, so I went to the library and borrowed theirs for a couple of days. And then, yeah, it broke. I have no idea. It's just the cooktop, but I don't cook, so I haven't used it very much. Anyway, that's a long, drawn-out explanation about my experience about this stuff.
So did you have a question?
Yeah, our Zoom people can't hear unless you talk very close to the mic.
Okay, I just wanted to comment that I know you heard the presentation about artificial turf. I don't know what the city in particular is going to do to help out in that regard, because it definitely is counter to your climate action plan as far as it actually, the plastic gives off CO2 and methane as opposed to absorbing it. I don't know that there's any rules within Sunnyvale that prohibits anybody from putting it in their lawns. I'm seeing it all the time. And when you speak to people, they're like, oh, well, I'm saving water. So maybe it's an educational thing that you can look into and do some more promoting from that aspect, so people realize that they're doing more harm than they're doing good. It also goes to landfill, and I've talked to your waste management company. If it's a big thing like a football field, the turf company, the artificial turf companies say they recycle it, and God knows where it goes and gets buried. Smaller homeowners, I'm sure they stick it in their garbage can, and then it goes to landfill. And I spoke to somebody today at Waste Management or something about the chemicals leaching into the ground, and they said, oh, well, there's a tarp there so that nothing leaches in, but I don't know how that works out. So it's the lack of carbon absorption. It's the extra heat by the turf and the landfill. So those are three really important things, and I would hope that the city would do more to educate the public and maybe lay down some more regulations, like you can't do it because it's not good, as opposed to just letting people do whatever they want. I know there were some permits you needed years ago if you wanted to cement over your whole front yard or something. So I don't know if that's possible.
Yes, and so I know that we've exchanged a couple emails about this, and so the study issue process is our way of being able to do that as staff, to develop that recommendation for the policy. So that's what that study issues in process, en route, and that's all those things are components of consideration for it. Yeah. Yes, thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, back to the conversation from a minute ago about the appliances. You talked about a workforce development component, and it strikes me that either that might merit a separate play, or maybe a revision to 2D or 2F, I think. But just making that explicit, we had similar experiences. We upgraded in every step of the way. The seller, the contractor, the installers all wanted us to do something other than electrify, and we just said, no, we're doing it this way. But it took an awful lot of work to get somebody who would work with us. And so I think that might be one of the fastest horses in this race in terms of getting adoption going.
Great, yeah, thank you. Definitely will take a note for that to be added into those specific moves. That's a great point that I don't know that, I think you're right, that aren't it's not called out. So I think we call out working with Bayron and working with SVCE, who are our partners in working in workforce development, but not specifically for that purpose. And I think we wanted to note that Bayron has a list of contractors now. And so I know I'm talking to early adopters in here, and so I think as time's gone on, they've been able to develop a list. But that's definitely something we'll note in the playbook. Thank you.
I think there's just one more online. Is Colleen?
Thank you. I was curious if you heard the news blurb I heard, that San Jose is further along than we are as far as getting some sort of award for being more further along environmentally.
I haven't seen that. Christina's telling me she did see it. I'll have to take a look at it. If it's because they adopted a new target, I mean, adopting a aggressive goal is great. They adopted an aggressive goal. I'm not sure where their progress is at compared to ours. I'd have to take a look, and it's a little hard to compare cities. Is it on a per capita basis? Is it not? Yeah. So I'll have to take a look. I don't have any information on that.
Thank you.
All right, now I had a couple of questions. One is on the EV charging. Over half of Sunnyvale's residents are renters. Do you have any plays or strategies for how to get charging stations deployed at a multifamily rental, especially retrofitting the existing ones?
Yeah, so I think of the play is just expanding the charging network. And so part of doing that would be making sure that there's publicly accessible charging near multifamily. I don't think we have anything that contemplates requiring installation of EV chargers at existing multifamily units, but it is something that we're looking at and working on with SVCE. So SVCE is currently working on a few pilot programs of doing that, and then they also this isn't SVCE. This is actually PG&E is running a program to install EV charging stations in existing multifamily free of charge, and so we've been doing outreach to property owners for that just this week. And so right now it's priority communities. We're working on that, and then in 2024 it'll open up more broadly. So it's a gap that everyone's aware of that we need to address. And so again, though, might not be called out specifically in the game plan, and I'll take a look at that to see if we can better call that out. addressing reach code for new construction, I think. And so it's new construction, and then anytime that there's a significant remodel. And so it would be addressed for like a new apartment complex. So like all of the apartment complexes in Moffett Park that are going to happen would have it. But
Okay, and the other question was on the natural gas ordinances. It said the date for that was 2026. That doesn't seem to give a lot of time for those to kick in before 2030. Is there a long pole or something that's pushing that out 3 years, or anything that could be done to accelerate that?
yeah, the long we have to understand where the limitations are for specifically for commercial, right? There's a lot of cost limitations right now for residential even as well. So if we were to just adopt an ordinance tomorrow that everyone has to electrify, it's going to cost everyone so much money to do so, and it's one of those things that we have to understand better. The ways to intercept when things go out, because that's the best way to get it, and then how we can phase in requirements for electrification that don't leave, especially people who don't have as much money to just electrify their home, like they aren't getting left behind, right? So if you just adopt an ordinance off the back and don't have any support programs, and for your lower income communities, that can be a consequence of that. So the 2026 date is so that we can develop the strategy for the ordinance, adopt the ordinance, and then it will get implemented, and it would likely be phased in over time. It's just what's feasible like with technology and what's available right now. Yeah.
Just quickly, Chuck already asked my question about multifamily residents, and I've got to say, I charge my EV at home. In my driveway, it works out fine at night. If I had to drive my car somewhere to charge it, even a block away, I just don't think that would work very well. And when I talk to people about getting an EV, they say I'm in an apartment, and that ends the conversation right there. So I think that's a problem, has to be addressed somehow. But I was going to ask about the kind of the final point you had at the beginning, how we harden ourselves or become more resilient. Unfortunately, as a planet, there's no way we're going to meet the targets we need to meet. And so sea level is going to rise, and we're going to have fires and so on. So I didn't see that, other than at the very beginning. I didn't see any of that here. But I assume there are some things being done to make the city more resilient under these things. I think Bruce was talking about this years ago, and I don't think any of us knew what he was talking about at the time. But
Yeah. So from the first game plan, what we are focusing on right now is our emergency response plans, and incorporating severe weather events into that, and just having a better way to talk about it, do outreach with the community. The other thing that we're looking at are community resiliency hubs. So we also have it on our list to create a resiliency plan, and then start looking at how we can implement some resiliency hubs, so places for the community to go in case of these extreme weather events. They might also be places where we can educate the community about why these are happening, what you can do to better prepare, and how we can help prevent this getting worse.
I think the final one would be Angus. He's online.
Hi, can anyone hear me? Testing.
Yep, we can hear you. Go what?
Cool. So just want to comment. So as far as electric charging goes, so I got an EV a couple months ago, and I live in a townhouse, and my housemate has refused to put in a fast charger, and at work our chargers are always full. So I've been getting by. Bluetooth headphones are pretty brutal. But I've been getting by with the EV charging at the Electrify America. And the Electrify America stations, unfortunately, are in sort of weird spots in Sunnyvale. One is in North Sunnyvale, in Office Park, and the only thing there is some office buildings. And the other one is in a strip mall on Lawrence Expressway. And there's a bagel restaurant there, but besides that, that's the only public facing business there. So one of the things I want to mention is for some of us who get by with fast chargers, just public fast chargers for EVs, it'd be nice if we had more of them in plazas, shopping centers, and places where we can walk around for half an hour, 45 minutes, or get lunch or something quick while we charge. But there are options for those who don't have charging at home. If there are places they can charge at lunchtime, at dinner time, at easier to say, with all family, but it is an option. That's all I had to say here. Just a comment.
Thank you.
All right, that was a very, very good and robust. Do you have a question, Jordan? Oh, okay, sorry. Do I take it out of your presentation?
Yeah, you can take the time out of my presentation. That's fine. Just a very quick question. We've talked a lot about decarb, which is fantastic. But what I keep coming back to is the fact that the largest share of emissions are in the transportation section, and some of that can be dealt with through decarb. But I'm curious what kind of strategies you guys are looking at to shift mode share to more sustainable methods of transportation in addition to the decarb stuff that we're talking about.
Yes, we have a handful of moves. I actually removed it from the slide deck. I should have left it in, but transportation demand management. So enhancing our transportation demand management program. I'm gonna blank out on what my second move is. And then we have one, the newest one that we have is one that's requiring businesses with 1,000 or more employees to implement a transportation demand program. So that's gonna be a really big one for us because that covers a lot of our incoming commute basically. And so really partnering with businesses to cut that down. A lot of that though with transit depends on regional entities, and I think that was where some of the, we need to get a little bit more collaborative there as well, and it has to happen on a regional scale. BPAC, yes. Active transportation plan. And I haven't read any of the comments, so I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss any questions there.
So the comments were basically Crystal Wickham sending a whole bunch of links. So I've been writing those down, and what we will try to do is send out a blurb that all these links to go to for resources. And also, this is being recorded, so you can go back and listen to it. But I think I've just looked at them all. So thank you very much for your presentation. And you did a great job for your first run. So we're going to pivot just a little to one of our coalition partners is Greenbelt Alliance. And Jordan Grimes is one of the resilience manager. So he's going to share what's going on in our community, the larger community, specifically Gilroy. Angus has got his hand raised. I don't know if something else came up, Angus.
Nope, just forgot to put it down.
Thank you. Okay. So Jordan, it is all you. Thank you for being in person and making the trek.
Awesome. So I do have a slide deck that is it possible to share that? Okay. Let me sign into the Zoom real quick here.
Me and I'll show it.
Yeah, that would be even better.
No, there's donuts in person. For my Zoom people, you can see what a donut is. Alrighty, so we're trying. Okay, sounds good. So Jordan is going to show some slides. These are all the links. our sign-in sheet is actually a board, and that's where all our people are signing in for today's event. All right, Jordan, you're on, yes?
Yes,
seeing 'em.
I am.
Thank
I
you.
am on. Thank you so much first to all of you for having me here tonight. My name is Jordan Grimes. I am the South Bay Resilience Manager with Greenbelt Alliance. We are a 65-year-old environmental organization started in 1958. Primarily focused originally around protection of open space. In fact, when we started back in the day, our name was People for Open Space. But as time has gone on, we've recognized that environmental protection encompasses a lot more than just preserving the open spaces that we have, although it is still a critical piece of our work. And that climate resilience, focusing on strategies to really help the communities of the Bay Area respond to our changing climate is integral to our future. And so to do that, we work with communities throughout the Bay Area on public policy to educate, advocate, and collaborate to make sure that the cities and towns and counties of the Bay Area have the tools that they need to be responsive to climate change. So a couple months ago, Greenbelt Alliance rolled out a big new project that we're very excited about called Resilience Hotspots. This focuses specifically on lands throughout the Bay Area that have a number of different factors that have issues with climate vulnerability as well as social vulnerability, focusing on areas that not only have wildfire and flooding and sea level rise, but also have communities that are disproportionately impacted by them. Communities of color, communities that have traditionally been disinvested. And the goal of the project really is to work hand in hand with those communities to identify solutions to the climate issues that they are facing. And so this sort of details exactly what we're looking at and where. So there are about 23 different hotspots throughout the region. We are focusing on a couple big ones, specifically Suisun City in Solano County, North Richmond in Contra Costa, Newark in Alameda County, southwestern Santa Rosa, it's cut off up there, but southwestern Santa Rosa, as well as Gilroy in southern Santa Clara County. And there's a few different values driving this work, but we are really focused on a number of them, including sharing power, co-creating, so that we're not just going into communities and saying, here's what you should do. We recognize that as a strategy has not in fact worked, and recognizing that we really need to work hand in hand with communities to identify what their needs are, and then help reach solutions and advocate with them in order to make change. So why Gilroy? Gilroy faces sort of all of those different threats that we talked about a couple moments ago. You have wildfire, you have flooding, you have extreme heat. In addition to that, you have health issues that are caused by those temperatures that are going up and up and up, all of which are driven by climate change. So when it comes to flooding, as some of you may know, Uvas Creek runs right through Gilroy. The city has seen considerably worsening flooding over the last decade, but especially this past winter, the winter of 2022, as some of you may have seen on the news, was particularly bad for many residents in Gilroy, especially at the southern end, and you ended up with many people losing their homes. There's been flooding work ongoing, but we are really looking to work with the community to identify nature-based solutions to solve some of those problems. Extreme heat as well. Gilroy ranks among the lowest cities in Santa Clara County for tree canopy, and has also issues with lack of permeability due to decades of urban sprawl, an issue throughout Santa Clara County, but that is affecting Gilroy, given that temperatures are warmer there than other places. And then wildfire, you have 28% of the city in a moderate, high, or very high wildfire hazard zone. We also know that in addition to wildfires, the smoke that comes with them are particularly harmful to residents there, which sort of dovetails into the next issue, which is the social vulnerabilities that we've talked about. All of these issues disproportionately affect the low-income Latino population in Gilroy, farm workers especially, people who are out working in the fields when that wildfire smoke comes through, when temperatures shatter records like they did last summer. So conservation and sprawl, like many cities in Santa Clara County, Gilroy has had and continues to have a history of sprawl development rather than urban infill. You have seen more and more agricultural land being consumed for both residential development and warehousing, which has a number of different impacts. Takes away permeable surfaces, which means that you have flooding issues. It also worsens those urban heat island effects, causing temperatures to rise, as well as decreases in water quality, local forest health, all of that bad stuff. And then the social and health impacts. So this is a big part of why we are looking at Gilroy. I mentioned that social vulnerability component in addition to the climate vulnerabilities. But Gilroy has a low-income, large minority Hispanic community that faces particularly high risk of these impacts. So 35% of Gilroy residents are renters. Of that, 50% of them are cost burdened. That's people who are paying more than a third of their income in rent. That has been steadily climbing over the years and is only getting worse and has been shown to have accelerated significantly since the city's last housing element. 2 times as many Gilroy households experience overcrowding as compared to the county. So in addition, we know that the entirety of Santa Clara County is getting more expensive. It's absolutely happening in Gilroy too. People are fleeing to Gilroy, which is expensive, but less expensive than other parts of Santa Clara County and is resulting in overcrowding. And then the pollution burden. We also know that Gilroy ranks in the 69th percentile for pesticide exposure and the top 75th percentile for groundwater threats. So lots of different vulnerabilities here, all of which are disproportionately impacting the Latino community in Gilroy. So what we're doing about this project, or about these problems, the Hotspots project uses spatial analysis to really point us toward where the issues are. We know from a very high level what the community is experiencing. We know about the flooding, we know about the wildfires, we know about the pollution burden. That doesn't mean everything, and in fact, there's still a lot that doesn't cover. Really, we need to get down to the neighborhood level, the street level, and find out how exactly this is impacting residents. We know that many communities, Gilroy among them, are segregated, and that what may affect one side of the street one way, or one family one way, might be very different for another. And so to do this work, we're partnering with local leaders to really understand that high-level data and actually work together to identify where the problems are on a very, to really drill down onto that and to go ahead and try and figure out solutions to them. So a couple of the partners that we're working with, we're very lucky to be working with Councilmember Zach Hilton, who has been a strong champion of climate resilience, as well as affordable housing and sustainability, as well as Marty Estrada and CARAS, the Community Agency for Resources Advocacy and Services, an organization primarily serving the low-income Latino population in Gilroy. Just a little bit more about CARAS. In addition to the climate space, CARAS really focuses on immigrant rights, voting rights, student advocacy. Part of the reason that they have gotten so involved in the climate space is because they realize that all of these different impacts are much more severe for the populations that they serve. So our goals of the program really, partnering and engaging with the communities that really need this work the most, establishing resilience hubs and cooling centers, something that we have been talking about a lot throughout the county, but are definitely focusing on in Gilroy, and really land stewardship to ensure permeability around the city. So of those goals, the biggest and I think really the most important is partnering and engaging with the community, especially with the Latino community in Gilroy, recognizing, as we mentioned, that all of these impacts affect people differently, especially low-income, disinvested communities, recognizing that different areas of the city are going to face different challenges based on who they are, based on who occupies them, and recognizing that what we might think of as an impact might look very different to someone else, to someone on the ground, trying to get through their day. So the Resilience Hub model is something that has been sort of elevated over the last several years, and is something that we've seen considerable community support for, and is something that we are really focused on in Gilroy. So over the next several months, we'll be evaluating the potential of schools to serve as resilience centers. Resilience centers can be, by nature, are really flexible. Essentially, you have a community, ideally a community building or area that you can turn into a resilience center where people are comfortable with, that they are familiar with, that can provide various things. That can be, air purification during a wildfire. That can be HVAC and air conditioning during extreme heat days. But similar to what we were discussing earlier, it can also be educational, letting people understand what's happening in their community and how to deal with it. And then our third goal, updating city design to accommodate water through creek and river restoration and floodable infrastructure. This is something we're doing quite a bit more of in other areas. For example, in North Richmond, we are working on a horizontal levee project. Some of you may be familiar with the term, but instead of pouring a bunch of concrete, you actually mold the environment around the area that floods to basically create new wetlands to actually absorb water, rather than really utilizing concrete and man-made solutions to deal with climate change. And the fourth is really protecting and stewarding permeable land in and around the city, including open spaces and working lands. Again, we know that a huge part of temperature increases is related to the urban heat island effect. We know that this is a big issue in San Jose, as well as throughout the county, but in Gilroy especially as well. And as the city develops and continues to develop, we want to make sure that the strategies being pursued are sustainable, leading to both permeability, affordability, et cetera. So we'll be working with multiple conservation partners on strengthening the city's urban growth boundary, which they enacted in 2016. Exciting stuff, as well as supporting infill development policies to create the affordable housing that the city needs. And then opportunities for resilience and community action. We're just getting started, so we'll be having a kickoff meeting in Gilroy in January. Details TBD, we will share them with you all. Anyone throughout the county is welcome, although we are obviously focusing on the Latino community in Gilroy to really understand their concerns and needs. And are really focusing throughout the region. I know I talked about Gilroy today, but as I mentioned, we're assessing a lot of other different locations. East Palo Alto on the peninsula is one of them. That said, all of the things about this project, at the crux of this project really is, using nature-based solutions to combat climate change. And obviously we're focusing on, a priority population, a disinvested population, but this is really a model that can be replicated throughout the Bay Area, that Sunnyvale could use, that many other communities could use, embracing nature-based solutions, things like the horizontal levee I mentioned for dealing with flooding and sea level rise, things like bioswales to catch rainwater, urban gardens in schools, all of those kind of things to reduce heat. That really is the crux of the project and is really replicable everywhere. So that's it for me. I'll go ahead and stop sharing here and am available for questions if anyone has them.
Wow, thank you very much. Anybody in the room have a question? I don't see anything on Zoom. Oh, Mike does.
You may want.
I do. I will go ahead and drop it in the chat.
I think you touched on this anyway, but it seems like the entire bay, there's an issue with regenerating the wetlands. And, they're dredging the bay all the time. They take all the dirt, they haul it out to the ocean and dump it. When we need to boost up the whole area around the bay to restore the wetlands, which will help with sea level rise and storms and everything else. So, I mean, is that something you're focusing on? I think you kind of alluded to it, but you don't call it out as a hotspot.
Yeah, we're primarily focused on specific locations, hotspots wise. I mean, I think we all know that the entire bay is going to need significant flood protection from sea level rise. That number, by the way, I think was pegged at like 110 billion. So there's going to need to be federal investment in that. But what we're really focused on is the how. And doing these things through solutions that we know work and are essentially more tailored to the environment as it exists, rather than trying to change things for our benefit, because I think, as we have seen too often, that has not worked out well, despite the best of intentions. Agnes, go ahead.
Yeah, hi Jordan. I have a question about water usage for Gilroy. With the increased population and also the agriculture in that part of the state, is water a concern in terms of supply of water for that area as well?
Not as far as I know. It certainly wasn't a concern in January. I can tell you that much. But no,
not in January for sure.
The answer is it depends. I think when it comes to water, we often hear these concerns. The reality is, when it comes to residential usage is really a tiny fraction of our water usage overall. It really does come down to agriculture, and that is a whole other conversation. But certainly when it comes to residential, it's not a concern for us really, because it's just so little compared to other uses.
Okay, thank you.
Gail, online.
Hi, Gail.
Hi. Where does the water runoff from the fields go in Gilroy? And is there any thing on the state level to mitigate against all these horrible chemicals that they use as fertilizer getting more controlled? And that's probably garbled. What the heck? I'm sure you get it.
I don't have an answer for you on the chemical question. I'm not aware of any legislation this past session that speaks specifically to that issue. The runoff, I think again, it depends on the farm specifically. In certain cases, you know, it runs into creeks and culverts and whatnot. In other areas, it does get treated, but it really depends.
And do you know if there's any state legislation cooking to fix that? And I'm sure it's a problem not just in Gilroy, but in this all over the state.
Not that I know of, but we have some community partners that I'd be more than happy to check on that with for you.
That would be really interesting because that, I mean, that's just huge because it all dumps eventually into the ocean or the bay. And it's really horrible stuff. Thanks. Good work.
Anytime.
So thank you, Jordan. This was it was really good to see you in person. It's been a long time.
I know. I figured I'd come down and say hello to everyone. It's
Thank
always great
you.
to be here.
And I think this is a perfect segue into our next topic, which you guys are doing it. We're looking at forming an equity pillar. And this whole project, this hotspot, is looking at people that their voice isn't as loud as maybe some others, and how to get that voice heard. So I really like what you're doing. And there's a reason why you guys are a coalition partner. So thank you. And Agnes, I will let you go forward with the next part, please.
Well, I will do what I can to share 2 slides. Okay, can everybody see those?
Yeah, we can see them.
Oh, good. Okay. So I guess it was last month, our board got together and we talked about creating a 4th pillar. It would be the addition to our, of course, housing, sustainability, and transportation pillars that Livable Sunnyvale was founded on. And we decided that while equity has always run through all of those pillars, it would be a really good idea to just call it out that we do believe in equity as an example. And as our community has grown, so has its needs. And we've seen that with what the city has done recently. In 2021, they decided to make an equity, access, and inclusion as a city policy. And it was an initiative to the city's commitment to foster equitable outcomes for all members of our community. Then we had Sunnyvale Unity, which, as you know, is a program that helps us if we are in, as an example, they've had workshops on if you're in a community and someone is being treated unfairly. They, the last workshop taught us how to speak with actually the person that was being, so to speak, targeted and the person that was doing the targeting, so that both you speaking up and the targeted person were in a safe place, and how to do it respectfully for everyone. And then we also have recently formed a Human Relations Commission, of which one of our board members, Paulina Zapata, has been appointed to. So all of the things the city has been doing recently are all focusing on equity as well. So I wanted to share with you some of the things that we have been doing as an organization that do not fit into our current existing pillars. And for some reason, I cannot advance my slide. So let's see. Let me see if I can do something else. It is not advancing. Oh, there we go. So what we have been working on recently is a mentor program. We were asked by Marie Bernard with Sunnyvale Community Services to work with the community leaders to help give them a voice to express their concerns. We are looking at what I'm calling language equality. We all know there are barriers to participating in community activities, one of which is language, and we want to make sure that publications that go out to our community members are in languages other than just English, because many individuals within our community are not English speaking as their native tongue. We had a presentation on guaranteed basic income at the Marathon City Council meeting, I guess it was last week. And so the city is looking into this program. And then there's also going to be an aging forum that we will be presenting sometime probably in January. So none of these items that we're working on really fit nicely with our current pillars, which is yet again another reason why we wanted to come up with a fourth pillar. So what we'd like to do this evening is we'd like to have you as members vote on whether or not you would like to implement this new pillar. And then we would take first of all, we would start off with someone presenting a motion. Then we would have a second to that. Then we would have a discussion where we would like people to just speak once and share your views, and then we will take a vote. So that's pretty much it for the equity pillar in a nutshell.
Thank you, Agnes. I will make a motion that we add a fourth pillar to Livable Sunnyvale, and it's an equity pillar.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion. This is Peggy.
Thank you, Peggy. Okay, now we can have conversation. So does anyone want to comment on this pillar?
Leah does. Hold on.
Please provide a definition for the equity pillar. You had a motion and a second without actually defining what, other than having an equity pillar, but you didn't actually define specifically what the equity pillar was and what it meant.
Well, I think what we talked about at our last board meeting is equity is making our city open for everyone and for doing things that we've been doing for the last 7 years, to have a city where people feel welcomed and people can participate. So that's a really broad definition, because I think equity is really going to mean a lot of different things to different people, but that's a broad definition.
There's no more questions or, oh, Colleen?
I have a concern about bandwidth, and it is a very open-ended topic. So I don't know if it's worth me opposing it or not. I think it's a wonderful idea, but and especially from the first question from the audience, I'm wondering if it's if there needs to be a little more definition of the details. Thank you.
Well, in answer to your concern, Colleen, I think that there are a lot of things that have come up within our community that we as an organization don't have the bandwidth to deal with. And I think that we just need to chip away with this as issues come up and people decide that they want to rally around them, because we can't change all of we can't make it all better for everybody at one time. And I agree, it's a lot of work, but I think we can chip away with it. And then in time, we look back and say, wow, look at all these things we did. It won't be everything, but it'll be the things that we think are important at the time.
So I'm going to go to Mike, and then Julia, and then to Leah.
Yeah, I don't think it's so much, something that's going to impact bandwidth. Just to point out some other examples, I noticed Transform has 3 pillars: transportation, housing, and equity. Spur, the research outfit, they define equity as fair and just outcomes for all people. Equity is achieved when our identities, particularly race, do not define our life outcomes. And other partners and organizations are reflecting that too. I think it's more a reflection of, times change and we become aware of different things. And like we used to talk about global warming, now we say climate change. It's not a different thing, but it reflects a better, broader understanding of what's going on. And if we're addressing, housing, sustainability, or transportation, and regarding sustainability, just as Jordan was talking about here, if we ignore the equity component to these, we just aren't doing it right. We aren't doing a good job, and so I think it's important that we acknowledge that and and be explicit about it. Another somebody that Silicon Valley, I remember someone we're working with at Silicon Valley Community Foundation said they look at affordable housing entirely with an equity lens now, and we see that with a lot of organizations. And SV at Home is doing I think a seminar or something on housing and equity for the Bay Area coming up soon. So I don't really look at this as a different direction, but we're framing it in a way that is more relevant to the world we're living in now. Would be another way to look at it.
Julia.
So I'm for adding this pillar because I always like to be clear, and also knowing that everyone else is clear on what our, I guess our purpose is. I don't think this is anything new, like Mike said. Equity has always run through everything that, Livable Sunnyvale has done, has attempted or accomplished. Just like sustainability runs through all our work, right? Talk about housing, transportation. Sustainability is not the same type as housing and transportation, but it runs through all our work. And so equity it has always run through all of our work. If you remember when we created our purpose statement, it was a livable Sunnyvale for everyone. And of course, the ones who need more will need more, right? So you have to have equity to provide them with more. If you, for the housing element, when we first started, reviewing the housing element draft, I think it was like everybody was already talking about we need to have more housing in the higher resource areas. We just, everybody was just like of the same mind, all jumped to that position. So I know everybody who's been working hard in this organization is for this, is for equity. So why not spell it out so that we can, let the world know this is exactly what we are. We welcome more people who identify with this pillar, this idea of equity. So anyways, I'm all for it.
Thank you, Julia. And Leah, I'm going to go to you, and then Angus, and then Cal.
Back to my point, I am all for equity. What I want is a definition that the membership, so they can understand exactly what it is they're voting for, and defaulting to the minutes of the board meeting, of which the membership don't have access to, I don't think is appropriate. So I think if you're going to add an equity pillar, you need to define what that pillar encompasses to be fair and accurate so that everybody understands what it is they are voting for. And that is my only comment. It's not that I'm disagreeing with it. I'm saying, define it, tell us what it is, then we can vote on it.
So Angus?
Hi. So I'm actually speaking out against adopting equity as one of our pillars. So I'm pretty focused on a single issue of the housing shortage, and I believe it's the number one issue causing and the source of almost all our problems we have in not just Sunnyvale, the Bay Area. We're looking at whether it's emissions, whether it's carbon emissions or pollution, whether it's racial demographics, class demographics, or other ethnic or people demographics, right? A lot of it, if not all of it, can be traced to the extreme cost of housing and rent around here. So, yeah, in my opinion, we should, if anything, double down on our biggest priorities and the biggest problems that we have, rather than expand to encompass yet another pillar of activism. Thanks. That's all for me.
Cal? You're muted.
So I like the idea of an equity pillar, but I think I agree with, I'd like to have more definition of it. I'd like to have it filled in a little bit more. I don't think I agree with the idea that this is always, it's just already built into what we've been doing. I don't, unless I'm wrong, I don't think a basic income has been something that we've been working on. I haven't seen it, but maybe we have.
So
That's
Cal,
all I have.
basic income is a future activity that we may be working on. It is something that was just recently presented to council. So that slide included what we're doing now and what we will be doing in the future, expecting to be doing in the future.
Yeah, okay. So it's not really something that we've already been built in. And I know what are we going to do about that? So I think it's too the information we have right now to vote on is pretty skimpy. That's what I'm saying.
So in the chat, and those of you that are in the room can't see this, Peggy Brewster has added a couple of things that might help to define equity. She said, for me, equity also means supporting more robustly those underserved and marginalized populations so as to provide conditions wherein we all can thrive. She also goes on to say that adding this fourth pillar explicitly will broaden Livable Sunnyvale's appeal to other groups, such as Sunnyvale for Equity and Education. And then again, as Mike had mentioned, there are organizations that look at housing in terms of an equity lens only. So those are some ways of looking at equity.
So I have a different definitional question, which is, what do we mean by pillar? And the reason I'm asking that is, if we mean that we're focused on equity as it relates to the three specific existing pillars, that has a narrower scope. If we're talking about a wide range of equity issues, there's a number of things that I think I could easily envision being important to talk about, but not within the scope for this organization. For example, many communities are worrying about equity in the interactions between police and communities or outcomes in courts. I don't envision that this organization would take on any of those kinds of issues. But I'm wondering if the intention behind this is to address equity issues that are specifically related to sustainability, housing, transportation. And that would beg the question, what's in or what's not within the scope of equity, which is maybe just a more long-winded way of re-asking the question about the definition.
Okay. So I just wanted to weigh in just a little, and then I'll let Angus go because I see he's got his hand up again. So I think from what I've experienced with Livable Sunnyvale, we are doing equity things. And I think it's important for us as a group to call them out and name them because it holds us to a stronger standard and a commitment to our values. I think we are an organic group that kind of evolves and pivots to different things. That being said, underlying all of that is education and outreach. And I think that's what we do as a group. We may not get into police issues, but if we feel like it's something that's coming to Sunnyvale and it's bothering and it's affecting our people, it might be an educational point that a meeting or discussion that we have. And I'm just going to go back a little to the history. Livable Sunnyvale participated and was very much behind wage theft, the minimum wage increase, and you could maybe say gun safety because some of our members are part of that. So I think we're doing equity, and if we need to come with a definition, I mean, basically, equity is looking at more of groups that need more help than others. So, I mean, that famous slide, which I saw at Homestead High School probably 10 years ago, not everybody needs the same ladder. I'm 5 foot. I need something that's going to get me a little bit higher so that I can see over the fence. Bruce is taller. He doesn't need that same amount of a step ladder to see over the fence. So that's an example of equity. It's raising people up to where we're all fair and just. It's not giving everybody equal. And I think what we're doing as our group here is trying to educate that there are not people here that are getting what they need. And I think that's a part of this group. So I think it's organic, what we're doing, and I think it's important to name it. In one of our discussions, one of our newest members, Paulina, and if you want to repeat this, because I don't want to put words into your mouth, but you felt it was important for your community, your Hispanic community, to have an equity pillar. And if you want to say something, I see you're on Zoom. I know you're caregiving right now for sick ones. So Angus, do you want to say something?
Yes, I'm not sure if I agree with what you said about raising people to equal heights there. We believe in meritocratic society here. It was a equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome. We're not a socialist organization here looking for equality here.
Thank you. I think, Chuck is going to say something, and maybe it's time to maybe take a vote, or can we?
And can I say something too? Oh, sorry.
Chuck's going to go first. Oh,
Okay.
since I
Sorry.
called you out, Paulina, I'll let you go, and then Chuck.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Angela. I think, and I supported this pillar because it's a way to make feel different communities part of not only this organization, but also part of Sunnyvale. I thought it was a good idea, and I shared with the community leaders, and they really love it. And one thing that I was thinking while you were talking is that it's very important to have this pillar, and we can see how important it is that even the city created this new commission to try to get more or the minorities here in this community, in this city, like more together. So I think adding this pillar will help us to reach communities that they don't feel that they have the same rights or benefits that the rest of the community.
All right. So I will start just saying I think it's important that we adopt an equity pillar. The reason is I just think it calls out equity as something that's important to the organization. Going back to last year, we actually did a survey at the end of last year saying, what do people want to work on over 2023? And the number one item that people listed was GBI, Guaranteed Basic Income, which is not a housing issue. It's not a transportation issue. It's not a sustainability issue. So this is something important to the organization that we want to work on. And I think we need to call that out as one of the pillars that we're focused on. And the second part was back to the definition. I don't know that we have a definition for any of our pillars. If you look at transportation or sustainability or housing, I don't know, I couldn't remember housing there for a second. I don't know that we have a written down definition of what the sustainability pillar is. And you can make all the same arguments for all of our existing pillars that people are talking about tonight. Sustainability is a huge concept, and we don't focus on all of those. There are areas of sustainability like we saw tonight, things that are coming before the city with the game plan, with the presentation from Greenbelt. There are different parts of sustainability that we've decided to focus on. But the reason we have it as a pillar is because that is an important topic that this organization wants to focus on. I think equity is another one of those topics. Thank you.
Can we vote? We don't have Martin here for the parliamentarian, but I think we have adequate discussion. And so
Angus, hang on a second. Is Angus's hand up again or, oh, okay, never mind.
So I think the last vote we had, we just need a majority. We don't have to have exact. But so just raise your hand.
Actually, do we know who the voting members are?
So Julia
Yes.
seconded. Paulina knows who's eligible to vote, so I would just say everybody vote. And then Paulina will weed you out if you're not eligible. We can just raise your hand. Accepting the motion. So let's see, in person. Is Mike voting or not? Oh. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I believe we've passed this motion. So thank you. Oh, so there are 2 votes against. Any in person against? I think you've been here twice recently in 6 months. That makes you a member or not? Paulina, is Bruce eligible to vote? He's trying to decide. Or do you know?
Yes, he is.
Gail voted no. Angus voted no. Bruce has voted yes. So I believe we've passed this motion. Thank you. Thank you all. It was good to be in person. It was good to see you all. And we had no technology glitches with the exception of talking into the mic. So I am so happy. We spent a lot of time trying to work this through. So thank you. And thank you, Sunnyvale Community Services, for hosting in such a good space. Bruce, are you locking down the joint? Paulina.
Yes.
Yes, because we are done. I don't have any other announcements or anything. I will say real quick, November 11th is a concert at St. Thomas in Sunnyvale. He's doing another concert. And I sent that out. I'll send it again. He's wonderful. He's a wonderful piano player. So, thank you all and good night.
Have a good night.
Oh, Paulina, can you
Yeah.
stay on?
Yeah, yeah.